Away from that, the Federal Capital Territory High Court in Abuja has granted the immediate past Kogi State Governor Yahaya Bello bail in the sum of 500 million naira, I beg your pardon, and 3 sureties. The trial judge, Justice Marian Anene, made the pronouncement after listening to a fresh bail application brought before the court following the court's refusal to grant Bello bail at the last sitting. Bello, alongside 2 others, Umar, Oricha, and Abdulsalami, Hudu, are facing trial on 16 counts preferred against them by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, bordering on criminal breach of trust and money laundering to the tune of 110.4 billion naira. The court, however, granted the second and third defendants bail in the sum of 300 million naira and 2 sureties alongside other conditions. Further reading out the conditions for Bello's bail, the judge held that the sureties must be responsible for citizens who are landowners, I beg your pardon, in any of the listed areas in Abuja, Maitama, Guzape, Wuse 2, or Asokoro. And now to discuss this, we're joined by lawyer and public affairs analyst Justice Ojionu. Justice, good to have you virtually. Normally, I always see you in real life or in person. But let's get into it, shall we? I mean, how stringent would you say are the bail conditions imposed on the former governor? Are they likely to even meet these conditions? And what impact would they have on the ongoing, trial?
Okay, for me, I saw that in the application of his lawyer to the court, the lawyer actually, the learned senior advocate J.B. Daude, actually asked the court for the court to spread the locations probably of the bill, because maybe he had a premonition. Of course, having studied the courts and the way the court grants its bail conditions, usually some courts will insist that it has to be in Asokoro, some courts will insist that it has to be in Maitama. But I think that, of course, subject to the discretion of the court spread the locations for him. And for a charge of 110 billion, the court gave a bail condition of 500 million naira. If you leave me to my whims, I will say that it is not that stringent. We must always remember that bail is fully at the discretion of the court, and the court has the exclusive right to consider what its own elements are before it actually came to particular conditions. So I generally feel that it's a fair bail condition, and it is now for the lawyers to Mr. Bello to decide whether it is something they can easily meet. But if they cannot meet it, there's also the option of variation of bail conditions. They can apply to the court for the court to vary and reduce the terms of the bail, or give them conditions that they will more easily meet. Because we must always remember that in our law that we all agree to abide by, pursuant to our constitution and various laws, that he is still to be presumed innocent until proven guilty. Because if he's asked to go and bring 10 elephants and compress them into the palm of his hands, that's asking for the impossible. And we usually say in law that lex non cogit ad impossibilia. You cannot use the law to compel the impossible. So he is not found guilty yet, so he cannot be given too much of conditions that will be very, very difficult for him to meet. Because if that is done, then it means that the court is practically punishing him for an offense that, pursuant to Section 36(5) of our Constitution, is not found guilty yet.
And then what then will now be the next step in the legal proceedings? How will the court ensure compliance? Because, I mean, there must be some sort of compliance from the accused part in terms of bail conditions, and just, to prevent any attempts to interfere with the judicial process.
Okay, well, it is for the courts it is for Mr. Bello and his counsel to look for ways to abide or fulfill the conditions of the bill. Because if they don't fulfill the conditions of the bill, the order of the court is that he be remanded, just like any other defendant that has gotten bail. So it is for them to fulfill the conditions. If they don't fulfill the conditions, the court gladly will say that no problem, just because charges were preferred against him, he has become a ward of the state. So the state will hold him until the allegations against him are proven either one way or the other. So if he doesn't fulfill the bail conditions, he stays in detention. And in staying in detention, in fact, that's what the courts most likely prefer. We must always remember that the bail as a legal proceeding is usually invented because of course, the presumption of innocence, and because it is practically impossible for states generally to be able to provide facilities to hold everybody that has been accused of an offense. So because of that, it is also convenient for the court, for a defendant to actually go home. It saves the state's money that they would have had to use to feed him, clothe him, take care of him, provide medicals for him if he is still held there. So they are helping the state in a manner of speaking. But if he is released on very, very liberal terms, it means that the court is satisfied that maybe he will not tamper with witnesses, he will not tamper with the case generally, and the case will still be able to run its full course unbiased, and the course of justice will not be perverted pursuant to his release. Maybe those are some of the things that weighed on the mind of the court before the court granted him bail on these terms.
And just how then, let's talk about the public perception of this, of the bill, right? How is the public likely to perceive the court's decision to grant bail to the former governor? Could it impact public trust in the judiciary and the fight against corruption?
Okay, for me, I think that generally, just like I said earlier, is to be presumed innocent until proven guilty. We were alive to the possibilities and the potentials for innocent persons to be punished unjustly. That's why we put those provisions in our law. So no matter generally what the public feels about it, we must always point them back to the provisions of the law. Even though, having also said that, we know that Nigeria being charged the way it is politically, it is very, very possible that a lot of people will not be happy with the fact that to them, it may appear that he is getting a slap on the wrist. But whether he's getting a slap on the wrist or not, we must remember that he is not to be punished until he's actually found guilty. So that's what we should try to sell to the people, even though we see that there are other persons in the Nigerian political system, and unfortunately so, that they do much more insignificant things, or maybe because they do not have the kind of clout that Mr. Bello has, or maybe they can't hire the kind of lawyers that they could hire, and we see that they don't get off this easily. So if he is getting off this easily, it must be that the court, in its own wisdom, has weighed whatever it is it wanted to weigh, and decide to come to land on this side of liberality or otherwise, depending on which side we are all seeing it from. But generally, I must always advocate for the fact that no matter how corrupt we perceive somebody to be in the court of public opinion, we must subject them to the proper procedure of the law. And the proper procedure of the law is to the extent that they are presumed innocent until they are proven guilty. If you are subjected to the same process, if I'm subjected to the same process, the same outcome should be what I should be expecting to enjoy, because we are talking about procedure here, and due process of law should not just be what the Americans are always talking about. It should also be something that is obtainable in Nigeria. It should not just be obtainable in case of Mr. Bello alone, but it should be obtainable and predictable in the case of every Nigerian or non-Nigerian, I dare to say, that faces the law in Nigeria.
Yeah, well, we wait to see how this whole case will pan out. But Justice, many thanks for taking out the time to discuss with us this evening. Justice Ojono is a legal practitioner, just giving us a bit of insight following the bail ruling for the former governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello.